Welcome to Talking with Tech. My name's Chris Bouguet, and I'm here with Rachel Nadel. Rachel, you're back. You're back. It's great to have you back. Last couple episodes, it was Melissa and I. Plus, people may have recognized in the feed that we've had a little bit of hiccup in our schedule. We've been having behind-the-scenes conversations about that. But let's, to the extent you're comfortable, Rachel, you want to tell people what's been going on that in Talking with Tech life and maybe in your life?
Yes, Chris. So last summer, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. And so it was just completely devastating to our family. And she's been such a strong force. I feel like I always knew that about my mom, but this entire experience has just solidified that for me. So she went through the standard chemo, radiation. I've been spending a lot of time on the East Coast. I'm from right outside of Philly originally, and that's where basically my whole family lives. And so to help her through treatment, I was spending a lot of time just living basically at her house. I'm so grateful that my work is remote. That's one of the biggest blessings this entire year has been for me. It's just like, wow, like I am so lucky that I can do my work remotely. From a clinical standpoint, most of what I do is coaching. And so I do that virtually. And then, of course, I have a team of therapists in LA, but it's just such a blessing. And so my mom was, in a pretty good place. And then in April, unfortunately, we found out that the cancer had spread to her brain. So she had to have emergency brain surgery. Super scary. Like there's just nothing that can prepare you for news like that, even when you know that there's a cancer diagnosis and you know that that's a possibility. It's just like been a really emotionally challenging journey. And it's also worth mentioning, I have an incredibly close relationship with my mom. It's like we talk all the time. We are constantly spending time together and prioritizing time together. And so she's like the person that I love the most in the world. And so when you get news like cancer, it's just like such a gut-wrenching feeling. And, it's been a year now since she's been diagnosed, and she had the brain surgery. She like crushed it. I'm like so proud of her. She was it was a blessing because as soon as I found out, I was in LA, flew back to the East Coast, and she had to go off one of her medications before she could have the surgery. And it gave us this beautiful window of like 8 days where we just were able to be with one another and really, really like work on her mindset. Because I am such a big believer in the mind-body connection. And just like it was like I was leading like a mini like spiritual retreat. I feel like we were like getting up every day. We were like meditating, and, she's such a great sport. She was never doing things like that before her cancer diagnosis, but she's been so open to really any and all potential things that could help support her healing. And so that week, while it was incredibly challenging and we were, fighting fear, a lot of times by the end of that time together, right before her surgery, we were in just this really amazing place. So many people also were sending prayers. We had like a group prayer that I know, Chris, you joined, which I was really grateful for, and so many of my friends and family. So she felt really strong going into that surgery, and she was in just such a great headspace. It was incredible. And then she got out of the surgery. It was supposed to be like a 6-hour surgery. The surgeon came into the waiting room and tapped on my shoulder and woke me up. And because we had to get up at 4 a.m. for the surgery. And I was like, oh my God, my heart dropped. I thought, oh my God, something went wrong. It's only 10:30. Why is she already out here? And she's like, your mom's done. She did great. It only took a few hours. It was she flew through the surgery. She woke up obviously in, incredible amounts of pain, but she's telling me I'm so grateful. I'm so happy. She's crying tears of joy. And it was just a remarkable recovery. She just even she was in a neuro ICU at the University of Pennsylvania. So all they do is brain surgery there and help people recover from brain surgery. And the nurses were like, she doesn't even seem like she had brain surgery. I'm like, I know. So I think it's just a testament to her strength and also her mindset. Like, she was so dialed in with believing that she was going to be, healing, believing that she was going to be the exception to the rule. And so it's just like, has really been a beautiful thing to see her with such an incredible mindset. And it has been such a beautiful experience for me to witness, you kind of get to a crossroads when you have a diagnosis of cancer, and you can choose to just believe that you're not going to survive, or you can choose to believe that you will beat the odds and be the exception to the rule. And it's a choice that you make every day and every moment, oftentimes, of the day. And the more you make the choice to believe that you will, be the exception to the rule, you just like start seeing your mindset just change over time, and you start seeing the body heal over time too. So it's been a very hard year behind the scenes. I've also been, still working and trying to work and still trying to kind of live a normal life. But ultimately, it's been a lot of time with my mom, and I am really grateful for that time. We've had incredible memories that we've created, and it's been really challenging, but I also am just so grateful. The time that I spend with her, I'm so present. I'm so there with her. We've had conversations that I never imagined that we would ever have. And we've built so many memories over the last year. And it's definitely the silver lining, that I've been just kind of so present with her and just so grateful for every single moment that we've shared.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it does seem like when something like that happens, or on your day-to-day basis, you sort of take things for granted. And then when something like that happens, it's, oh my goodness, it's like a magnet to drawing each person together. And then you have these rich experiences together that you might otherwise would be like, what'd you do today, Mom? No, I just went grocery shopping. Okay, yeah, me too. And then you don't talk about anything. Now you're having these deep conversations and connect in a way that you probably are already connected, but not having those sorts of conversations at least.
Totally. And yeah, even like right the night before the surgery, of course, there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of nerves. And, we were sitting and just like before bed, hanging out, and we're just like laughing and like giggling and having the best time. And she like paused and she's like, are we not taking this brain surgery serious enough? And I started laughing, and I was like, at first I thought, maybe you're right. Maybe we're not. And I was like, no, Mom. I was like, hold on a second. Like, just because you have brain surgery, it's not like we're not showing up for the surgery tomorrow, right? Like, we're going, like, you're doing the surgery. We don't have to be in a place of fear. Like, we can be enjoying each other's company and really like embracing the moments that we have together. And I thought it was just like, it's a memory that I'll never forget, because like we both looked at each other like, wait a second. And I was like, no. Like there's nothing that says that we have to be, in this place of like fear and, this mindset of doom, right? Like, it's like we have to fight that because that's a normal human response, and like also feel all the feelings that go along with that. But like, if we can choose to just like be present in the moment with one another and enjoy our time together, like, what a beautiful gift.
These expressions exist for a reason. Laughter is the best medicine, right? So here we are. How do we get our fears out? We're going to laugh about it and make it silly and have fun together and make that a good memory rather than something morose, right? Something else that you did, Rachel, that you didn't say explicitly, so I want to call it out, that was really helpful. We say on this podcast, the minutes count. How many minutes you're working with kids and with your family, all that kind of stuff. And a way that you sort of maximized your minutes that I saw was, everyone in your family and friends, their network would be reaching out going, how's mom? How's mom? How's mom? And what you did was, hey, I'm going to put this on, it's sort of like a personal blog, but it was a Google Doc, and just said, check in on the Google Doc. That's where I'm going to put the update. So this, again, maximizes your time with your mom. You're not emailing or texting a billion people back. You're focused on your mom. I just thought that was a brilliant move.
Yeah. I mean, it's like such a testament, I think, to my personality. I'm like, how do I automate these messages of well wishes and, check-ins? And so, yeah, it was one of the smartest things I thought of, actually, because I'm so blessed to have so many incredible people in my life. Like I was just the outpouring of support that I felt, both from my network of friends and family, but also I ended up posting on social media and just like so many messages and so many comments. And like, I really believe in the power of collective thought, prayer, like all of that healing energy that was sent to my mom. Like I really believe is what helped her, do so well in the surgery and heal so quickly. And so, yeah, like the Google Doc has been really a game changer. It's also like, it's not just like the medical updates. I'm like, she's in a good mindset today. Here's a picture. Like Matt came over. Matt's my twin brother. Matt came over to visit today. And so it's just been a really great way to help everyone like follow along without having to kind of, send the message, because we were getting so many messages and all her friends were messaging too. And it was just like, okay, like there has to be like a simpler way. And I think that's been a really useful tool to just like, again, save my precious energy and minutes, and also keep everyone up to date. Like people are still checking in, and I know you check in on it. Like before people ask me how's mom, they're like, oh, I checked and I saw like she's doing really great. So yeah, I think that's been a game changer. You're not the only person that's like, that was so smart. Like what a great idea.
Yeah, that was a great move. So we're with the recording right now. How is she doing? What's the status update?
Yeah, great question. I'm sure that's like the $1 million question. Everyone's like, how is she? So she just had another kind of brain tumor pop up. She was having some neurological symptoms that came on suddenly, not being able to see, fully walk. And so she ended up having radiation to that new tumor. Other than that, she's pretty much stable. So it's like she's doing an amazing job. She's following actually a therapeutic ketogenic diet. It's an incredibly hard diet to follow. And so I'm just like so proud that she has like completely shifted her lifestyle. She was already pretty healthy as far as what she would do eating wise, diet wise. But yeah, so she's following that and she's in a good place. She's again, like very cognizant of the situation that she's in, but like she's waking up every day. She's going outside, spending time in nature. That's like her happy place. She's meditating. She's really, really prioritizing mindset. And that is, I think, one of the most important things. And full circle, Chris, I feel like it's the most important thing with the work that we do with the students that use AAC, right? It's like we have to believe in their potential to communicate. And just like the power of belief is just the ultimate thing that can change a trajectory so quickly is like believing. And so I'm just like grateful that I had the background of teaching the power of mindset. I also have experienced it in my own life. And so it's felt like an incredible gift to be able to share with my mom. And I know that she's shared with me like how supportive that's felt. And I'm so happy that I have that skill in my back pocket and that understanding, because I think it's not something that like, we're taught in schools or anything like that. It's like you have to kind of start understanding over time, like, oh, like there's such thing as like, really strong belief systems. And then there's limiting beliefs, and like, where are we at right now? And like really having that awareness can really, shift and change your biology like very quickly when it comes to healing.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me that I would imagine things vacillate at times when you want to drift over to limiting belief. And then because you have this background and experience of going, well, wait a second, I recognize that's limiting belief. Get out of here, limiting belief, right? And you can combat it.
Totally. Yeah. It is a constant practice. It's not, I think it's like we're hardwired as humans for like survival and focusing on the negative and like trying to just keep ourselves safe. But like, we also have the ability to be very aware of those thoughts, aware of those negative limiting beliefs, and we can change the script. We can change the narrative. It just takes some extra effort and some practice. But over time, it's like, that's the reason that gratitude practice is so powerful. It's like you're training your brain every day to focus on the things that you're grateful for in your life. And that just makes a big impact over time.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of all the listeners of Talking with Tech, I'd say that's awesome news. Everyone's behind you. Everyone's behind your mom. We're all sending you the powerful, good energy that you need and deserve. And then you also brought up AAC users, and that is exactly what the interview is today.
Yes, I had the pleasure of interviewing Kayla Ireland. Kayla is an incredible AAC user doing lots of amazing things in the community. Of course, like AAC user episodes are my absolute favorite episodes. There's no better way to understand and learn about AAC than to listen to someone that has a lived experience. And, this interview is no different. I'm really excited to share all of the gems of wisdom that she shared with me. She's doing really amazing things. And so I'm really excited to share the interview I did with Kayla Ireland.
If you enjoy Talking with Tech, we could use your help in spreading the word about the podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. The more positive reviews the podcast gets, the easier it becomes for others to find it. The more people who find the podcast, the more the word spreads about how to effectively consider and implement AAC. And who doesn't want that? If that sounds good to you, please take a moment and give the podcast a quick review. We'd so very much appreciate it. Now, let's get back into the episode.
Welcome to Talking with Tech. I'm your host, Rachel Madel, joined today by Kayla Ireland. Kayla is the host of the Kindly Neurodivergent show with Kay, a show that raises awareness about neurodivergence. She is the office manager at Silver Speech and co-hosts the Inside Scoop of Living with Cerebral Palsy, which highlights CP awareness. Kayla is also a co-author of Living with Cerebral Palsy, a powerful collection of personal stories led by Kyle Scott. She co-hosts Rock the World with Kay and Michelle, a podcast dedicated to amplifying voices, breaking barriers, and celebrating resilience. Kayla is the communication assistant and a dedicated member of many committees for Little Britches Therapeutic Riding, where she is an avid and experienced horseback rider. Kayla is also a college student at community college. As you see, she is happy, motivated, and active, vibrant female with cerebral palsy and epilepsy who has defied the odds. Kayla, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me on and for the introduction. I look forward to discussing my communication journey. Before we begin, I respectfully request that if you witness any pauses during this show, please continue watching. I'm composing a spontaneous comment or question, someone processing their thoughts, in addition to repeating something that was unintelligible or misunderstood. It is natural discourse, and we can choose not to say anything while this is occurring.
I love that you mentioned that, Kayla, because I was just mentioning before we hit the record button that our audio engineer, Michaela, we've had multiple discussions on this podcast when we have AAC users on. How do we handle all the pausing? And I think Michaela does a really amazing job of honoring the pauses and the space and time it takes an AAC user to compose a message in real time, and also doing a little bit of editing to shorten up the podcast a little bit. So I'm happy that you mentioned that.
I personally don't edit those because in real life, if you meet me, there's no edits.
I love that. You're a fellow podcaster, which I also love, and we'll get to in a second. So whenever we have AAC users on our podcast, we love to just hear about their AAC journey. I think it really exemplifies that it is a journey sometimes. So can you just begin by sharing a little bit about your journey with AAC?
I started therapy at 1 year old. I was immediately labeled nonverbal. The speech therapist introduced sign language to jumpstart my expressive communication. It was determined that fingerspelling was easier physically for me and more universal to teach others. I later learned how to communicate with the world through an augmentative and alternative communication device. To match me with a reliable voice, I had an AAC evaluation. This assessment helped my team determine methods, devices, techniques, symbols, and/or strategies to represent and/or augment my spoken and/or written language. Initially, I had a communication device called Dynavox. It had pre-programmed grids filled with picture vocabulary, buttons to formulate sentences, and a keyboard with word prediction. While it taught me the value of technology, voice-activated communication, and more diversity in my vocabulary, I experienced a lot of intense feelings towards my big, bulky, and expensive Dynavox. My biggest complaint was that it constantly kept freezing, especially when I had something important to say. Many repairs were necessary for this dinosaur, and let's not underestimate the stress. In high school, it was suggested that I bring in my 9.4-inch iPad and use the communication application called Proloquo to go. I prefer not to utilize the pre-programmed grids that are automatically provided on Proloquo to go. It is too limiting and reminds me of the dinosaur I had. However, I take advantage of pre-programming my thoughts for any presentations, interviews, and/or conversations I participate in. After graduation, I had another AAC evaluation where I switched to the device that I still have now, a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. It allows me to split the screen and use both academic apps and Proloquo to go at the same time, offering the flexibility, reliability, accuracy, and control I need.
I think that your journey with AAC is very similar to a lot of other AAC users we've had on, in that it's not like the first thing that was tried was the thing that you ended up with. And there's lots of iterations in figuring out what is the most supportive system. Also, sometimes it's not just one, which was definitely eye-opening to me when I first started doing this podcast and talking to a lot more people who use AAC. And so I think that that is a really good reminder for the clinicians listening to this podcast, or maybe parents who are just starting off on an AAC journey. We do our best in an assessment process to try to get it right. But ultimately, we have to do our best job to support the individual in front of us. And that means sometimes kind of coming back to the drawing board and figuring out what's working and what's not. Yeah. So, because you have had a lot of experience with AAC, you're doing amazing, incredible work in the world. Tell me a little bit about what you've learned and perhaps some advice that you would give to either other AAC users or family members of people who use AAC. What would you say to them?
Looking back, Dynavox should have had better service and support. Although it technically had the same features that Proloquo 2 Go offers today, I had terrible luck with their products. My biggest piece of advice is to use total communication. If someone doesn't understand your speech, vocalizations, or sign language, you need to have another method available.
Yeah, I think that's such a good piece of advice, because a lot of these people who are listening to this podcast are like very device focused, and with good reason, because there's a lot of amazing things that technology can do, but it's not to forget some of the foundational communication skills like gestures and vocalizations, and so I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like there's lots of different ways that an individual can communicate, and really recognizing that.
I don't like forcing a hierarchy of communication styles. I don't categorize people as unfamiliar communication partners. I use whatever comes natural in the moment: fingerspelling, verbalizing letters and words, body language, or my device.
Mm-hmm. I have another question about that. What do you do when you're communicating with maybe a communication partner that's new and you haven't communicated with before, and there's a breakdown in communication?
Totally depends on multiple factors, like if I am horseback riding.
Yeah, I can imagine that using a device when you're on the back of a horse could be a little challenging. No? Tell me more, because I don't know. Actually, we did have an interview with, I'm trying to think of the interview that we did, but it was an SLP who worked at a facility where they were doing AAC and equestrian therapy at the same time.
I don't try that.
You don't try that? Are you using vocalizations and gestures?
And sign.
Unsign.
And if my shirt has lettering on it.
Meaning you point to the letters on your shirt to spell? I've never heard that, but I love that. How clever.
In any environment. Or if I see any lettering.
So anytime there's letters available, you'll use them to start spelling. I love that. You know, I wanted to share. I haven't talked to a lot of AAC users that are really using sign language. So I love that you're really utilizing that as an approach. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Technically, I use fingerspelling and basic sign language due to fine motor skills and easier for family.
So is your family fluent in fingerspelling?
The ones I always see.
Makes sense. And I love that you are able to utilize a system like that with your family that you're close with. Because ultimately, what I'm hearing you say is the most kind of efficient means of communication in that moment, based on the context that you're in, the people that you're with, and the different systems and modalities of communication that you have, you're selecting which one makes the most sense in that situation. Yeah?
And vocal.
Yeah. Which I know, well, I'm going to ask you another question, but I have a feeling you have a lot of thoughts on using the term nonverbal. So I'm going to ask you really quickly to tell me about the most challenging aspect that you found being an AAC user
At times, I preferred signing over using my device, especially when it could take longer to find the right picture than to fingerspell. Now that my device is fully text-based, it can still sometimes be quicker for me to fingerspell instead of pecking out words letter by letter, even with predictive text.
Yeah, I mean, I totally hear that. And I feel like we've talked to some AAC users on this podcast, and they've said spelling is actually faster for them and easier for them than symbol-based communication. So it sounds like you're using Proloquo for text.
But blank.
A blank one. Really? Okay. So you're using it. I think what you're saying is you're using Proloquo to go, but it's a blank template. And then you're programming phrases that you need, or using it. Tell me more. I need to know. I need to understand this better now.
I only program for meetings and interviews.
Otherwise, you're spelling in real time with the keyboard. Okay. I would have never thought to set up a system like that. So I'm super curious. Were you working with an SLP who suggested that? Did you come up with that on your own? That was you. That was you. I love that.
Because I don't find the grids helpful due to how much my conversations can cover.
You know what? I'm going to have to agree with you, Kayla. I find that oftentimes the templates are very limiting. And like, why are they set up this way? This makes no sense to me.
Especially as you are witnessing with me.
Yeah. You're pretty fast, if I do say so myself. So I feel like you've landed on a really solid system.
Depending on spasticity.
So meaning different days and times, perhaps you have different levels of spasticity, which affects your rate. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we're going to circle back to the term nonverbal. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I say I'm nonverbal because to me, that means I use nonverbal communication. I don't fully understand the shift to calling it non-speaking, and personally, I question why my spoken language sometimes gets labeled as approximations if I have to work so hard to get those out and intelligible.
I love that. And I feel like that's such a good point, because so often we use these terms and there's such a negative connotation to them. And it's like, who gets to decide how intelligible or not intelligible a word is? And who gets to decide if we call it a word or a word approximation? Like, it's such a gray zone. And I feel like you bring up a really good point.
What is your view?
Yeah, I mean, you're really opening my eyes to this. I haven't thought about it before now, but it's so subjective, right? So what I would consider a word approximation, someone else might consider a word. So if there's no real clear delineation as to what a word is versus a word approximation, it's hard to kind of say what's what. And to your point, you know, there is somewhat of a negative connotation to saying someone is communicating with word approximations. Yeah, drop the mic. You like that?
I don't even understand total communication.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like these buzzwords or jargon that SLPs use that doesn't always make sense. And in some ways, I feel like we're kind of challenging some of those things, right? Like, I think that's why we're seeing things like I prefer to be called, non-speaking instead of nonverbal. And one of the things that I really like is, with information being so accessible and people being able to share their opinions so easily now, what we're hearing is more voices of AAC users, autistic adults. And so I love that we're shifting the narrative to listening to these voices, and they get to decide what feels good to them and how they want to be, what language they want to use in regards to their communication, their diagnosis.
And I don't always have technology.
Meaning you don't always have technology to communicate, or it's not always in front of you? It's not always in front of you. Yeah. So you have to have backup means for communication. Yeah. People love stories, Kayla. And I'm curious if you have any fun or heartwarming stories to share with our audience.
I had to take a placement test to determine which math and English courses were best suited for me. I was placed into a 6-credit developmental English course. Don't you know that my relationship with language is complex? For example, if I am hungry, I sign or verbalize it instead of I want to eat or I am hungry. This is because in the nonverbal world, 1 or 2 words equate to a whole sentence. Ugh, I waited as long as I could to take any English courses. However, despite my initial placement, my professor astoundingly informed me that I would do fine in the 3-credit version of her course. I shockingly received an A in every English course I took. One of my papers was published in the Composition Anthology.
I love that. How amazing. And I think the thing that I love the most about what you said, which was kind of an aha moment for me listening, was this idea that in the nonverbal world, 1 or 2 words can equate to a whole sentence. And I feel like that's important because, as speech language pathologists, we are so focused on trying to expand utterance length and help our students formulate in full sentences and use grammar, and not to negate the importance of that. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that it's a lot faster and easier for you to communicate with 1 or 2 words, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Because I think it's very much viewed from parents or educators or even clinicians that well, no, like just saying eat isn't enough. Like say it in a whole sentence, prove you can say it in a whole sentence. And so what I'm hearing from you is that should be enough.
Does that make sense, or do you need an example?
I would love you to give let me say that again. I would love for you to give me an example.
My daily request versus a 5-page college paper. With enough details.
That makes sense. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that depending on the context, like you can use a lot more words and language, and in your everyday requests when you're communicating with familiar communication partners, you don't have to use as much.
It is a language barrier. Because I am forced to expand.
That makes sense.
Do you want to rephrase what I'm saying?
No, I think I understand. And I really appreciate it. Unless you want to rephrase it, I'm happy to have you rephrase it if you want.
Are you surprised that I feel that way?
No, I'm not actually. I mean, I've never thought about it that way because my clinician brain is always thinking like longer sentences, more grammar. How do we keep supporting that? And so I'm happy you shared that because it's a really good reframe to think, sure, like, do we want to teach these skills to a student who doesn't have them yet? Like how to use specific grammar, how to expand a sentence and use lots of different vocabulary. However, the lens I was not thinking through until this conversation was how do we also help support fast, efficient communication with family members and communication partners that are familiar when the context is I'm asking for just a basic request.
College education demands.
Yeah, which they demand a whole lot more. And luckily, I'm not in college anymore because I didn't like writing those long papers. You're like, I don't like that either. Oh, Kayla, I've had so much fun talking to you today. I'm really so excited to share this interview. What is next on the horizon for you?
I'm preparing for my second horse show in October. I also want to write an autobiography one day.
Well, you're definitely going to have to share that with me and the world because I'm excited for both of those things. For people who are looking to connect with you, what is the best way to do that?
I'm always looking for people to talk to on my podcasts. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Before we go, fellow podcaster, tell me about your podcast.
Well, I have 3. The Inside Scoop of Living with Cerebral Palsy. Kindly Neurodivergent with Kay. Rock the World with Kay and Michelle.
And the good news is we have all of those and we're going to link to those in our show notes. So for people who want to follow you, they can easily go to our show notes and find them. Kayla, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm so excited to share this interview.
I can't wait to schedule you.
I will definitely come on your podcast. It'd be my pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. For Talking with Tech, I'm Rachel Madel, joined by Kayla Ireland. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.